dear viewers, good evening. You're watching RTD's English News Edition. Here are our top lines for tonight. At the Presidential Palace, the head of state, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, receives the President of the Somaliland, Musa Bihi. Back to school 2019-2020, high school students regain their classes. And concerning Brexit, Boris Johnson believes in the chances of an agreement. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. The President of the Republic of Somaliland, Mr. Musa Bihi Abdi, who is at the head of a large delegation, arrived in Djibouti today for a 48 hours working visit. Upon his arrival at the international airport of Djibouti, President Bihi was warmly welcomed by Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed and members of the government, namely the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation spokesperson of the government, Mr. Mohammed Ali Yusuf, the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Mr. Hassan Omar Mohammed, Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Awali, the President of the Republic of Somaliland, Mr. Musa Bihi Abdi, greeted all members of the government and then headed to the Prime Minister's side towards the Hall of Honor of the Djibouti International Airport. Moreover, Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed welcomed President Bihi and his delegation and then exchanged views on friendship and cooperation relations between the Republic of Djibouti and Somaliland. President Bihi's visit to Djibouti is part of the direct and periodic contacts and exchanges between the leaders of the two parties. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, received today, Tuesday, late in the morning, at the Palace of the Republic, the President of the Republic of Somaliland, Musa Bihi Abdi, who at the head of an important delegation is on a 48 hours working visit to Djibouti since this morning. President Bihi's visit to Djibouti is part of the direct and periodic contacts and exchanges between the two leaders of the two sides. The one-on-one meeting with President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, was the main stage of the Somali President's reception at the Palace of the Republic. The friendly and cooperative relations between the Republic of Djibouti and Somaliland were discussed during the meeting. The discussions were then extended to strategic partnerships between the two sides in several key areas of interest, including economic complementarity and security cooperation. It should be noted that the separate hearing between the head of state of Djibouti and the President Bihi was preceded by a working meeting extended to the main collaborators of the two leaders. The prospects for greater collaboration and economic exchanges between the two parties in the light of their increasingly general interconnectivity and inter-areas by pooling their telecommunication systems and significantly strengthening the junction channels were discussed at this extended working meeting. In this regard, the exchanges focused mainly on new commercial opportunities that are likely to be exploited by both parties on the verge of the now almost completed Djibouti-Somaliland road. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Somaliland, Mr. Yassin Haji Mohamud, and his colleagues from Defense, Livestock and Fisheries, respectively, Mr. Abdelghani Mohamud Ateye and Mr. Hassan Mohammed, took part in this working session. On the Djiboutian side, in addition to the Prime Minister, the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Defense, and Head of the National Security, members of the Office of the President of the Republic, attended the meeting. Djibouti and Somaliland share exceptional ties that draw their privileged character through a community of culture, language, values, and immediate territorial proximity. Somali Foreign Minister Yassin Haji Mohamud said in a statement to the media that the visit of President Musa Bihi Abdi is of great importance and is due to the invitation of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh. For his part, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Government spokesman Mahmoud Ali Yusuf commented on the most important files discussed between the two parties. Among them, he said the strategic partnerships between the two sides in several key areas of interest, including economic complementarities and security cooperation. Tens of thousands of high school students went to the secondary schools in the capital and as well as in this morning at the beginning of the new school year. The high school opened its doors with the new academic year under the slogan of a transformation, performance and excellence. In this regard, the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, along with executives from his ministry, went to some primary educational institutions to get acquainted with the process of receiving students with the entry of the academic year. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training said that this new school year begins with a clear strategy to implement transformative educational programs that will take into account the content and new programs developed by the Ministry of Education. After basic education, yesterday, Monday, to today is Thursday, September 3rd, the start of the new school year for general and technical schools. Students and teachers of this level of education have therefore all returned to their schools with the same enthusiasm as their classmates in middle school and basic education schools. On the occasion of the start of the high school year, the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahmoud, accompanied by senior officials from his department, including Secretary General Muhammad Abdullah Mahyub, the Director General and the technical advisors, toured the various high schools in the capital. The ministerial delegation successively visited the PK-12 High School, the Belbela High School, the Lake, and finally the Djibouti High School. It should be noted that this year a new transformation and guidance system has been adopted so that pupils can make an informed choices of school. Like the rest of the country, the back-to-school period of primary and middle school teachers in 2019-2020 went well in the RTD region. A strong delegation led by Abdullah Dirar and the representative of the Department of Education in this region, Mr. Hassan Ali Hadi, began an early morning inspections visit to the new school. As for the number in basic education, some 3,248 pupils have returned to their schools. For the second consecutive year, the pupils of the basic education were skillfully dressed, and for the first time, the pupils of the middle education were all dressed in the same clothes. Indeed, as in other regions in the capital of our country, the 2019-2020 school year began in the schools of the Unity region early in the morning. A delegation led by the prefect of the region, Mohammed Sheko, and composed of civilian and military authorities, including the president of the regional council, Mr. Abdurrahman Yunis, a second deputy prefect, regional elected officials, the head of the education department, Mr. Muhammad Aden, and also prominent figures toured the schools to supervise the smooth start of the school year. A total of 9,000 students were enrolled in all basic education schools in the Dakhil region, including 5,900 students enrolled in basic education and 3,100 in middle schools in the Unity region. The teachers assigned to the schools in the Dakhil region were all present at their posts and welcomed the students in an atmosphere marked by joy and reunion. Like the other regions and the capital, the back to school was effective in the Obok region since yesterday. Regional education managers accompanied by authorities oversaw the successful implementation of the back to school. For the second consecutive year, basic school students were skilled in clothing, and for the first time, uniforms were established for middle school students. The start of the 2019-2020 school year and was normal in good conditions throughout the Ali Sabih region, with a total enrollment of 8,500 from primary to secondary school on the way to school. It is in this context of national scope of a delegation led by the prefect of the region, Mr. Muhammad Waberi Asowe, composed of the vice president of the regional council, Dawood Saeed, and colonel of the Pious Army of the region educational inspector, and the team of the regional pedagogical supervision team, the company commander of the Ali Sabih region, the lieutenant of the police of the Ali Sabih detachment, undertook supervisory visits to schools and establishments in the city of Ali Sabih. Through these visits, the delegation was able to find out about the conditions under which students are welcomed by their teachers, who are very present at their assignment posts. Thus, the heads of the schools and teachers were present to welcome the students. The United States Embassy in Djibouti is pleased to inform you that application for the 2020 Mandela Washington Fellowship will begin on 12 September 2019. The Mandela Washington Fellowship is the flagship program of the Young African Leaders Initiative YALI, and is a key element of the U.S. government's commitment to invest in Africa's future. In the summer of 2020, 700 young African leaders will be selected to participate in a 6-week training course at a high-level American university in one of 3 areas: business and entrepreneurship, civic leadership, or public management. A specialized group session on energy will be also available. Last week, a delegation led by Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden, Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, visited China for a working visit. This visit also makes it possible to strengthen the cooperation links between the Djibouti Gendarmerie and the Chinese People's Army Police. A warm welcome was extended to the delegation led by the Chief of Staff of the Gendarmerie. To begin, the delegation enjoyed a guided tour of the special police schools of the People's Army Police of China. Colonel Superior Zhang commanding this school showed the Djibouti delegation the various facilities and means available to the school. Continuing the visit, the Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden was received by the Popular Army Police headquarters by Army General Cheng Chiakal, Chief of Staff of the Popular Army Police, and his Deputy Major General. The exchanges between these officials highlighted the excellent cooperation between the Republic of Djibouti and the People's Republic of China. The Chief of Staff were also able to discuss the strengthening of human and material capacities in the profile of the Djibouti Gendarmerie. It should be recalled that the international training provides a solid basis for strengthening the human capacities of the Gendarmerie. This perspective is an integral part of the will of the forces. Our High Command. Continuing the visit, the Colonel Zakaria Hassan had a meeting with the General Director of the International Military Cooperation Office of the Central Military Commission. This meeting took place in the VIP lounge in the presence of a large delegation of senior officers from the same office. Throughout this meeting, the military leaders were able to demonstrate their common desire to maintain the special ties that exist between the two countries. To conclude its journey in China, the delegation led by Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden went to Shanghai within the school of the 1st Mobile Detachment of the Shanghai People's Army Police Corps. The Ministry of Health organized a closing ceremony of a training workshop on newborn care protocols for about 20 staff involved in the care of newborns, such as the midwives and hospital anesthetists. The ceremony was therefore sanctioned by the presentation of certificates to the staff thus trained, certifying their competent skills and their perfect mastery of the techniques of monitoring adequate care of newborns in hospitals. This 5-day training is part of the neonatal mortality reduction program, which aims to provide standardized knowledge and skills in emergency neonatal care in order to ensure better overall therapeutic care for newborns. It is with great sadness that we announce the death of the late Abdul Ghalil Ahmed, who died in Ethiopia on the night of Thursday, 29 August and Friday, 30 August, around 2:30 a.m. The late Abdul Ghalil was the eldest son of his family and was the father of 9 children and grandfather of 20 grandchildren. We share the pain of the family experiencing. We express our sincere condolences to the family of the deceased and pray Allah to welcome him to his eternal paradise. International news. The Tunisian presidential campaign officially opened yesterday, revealing many uncertainties about the popularity of each of the 26 candidates. 1 month after the death of the RTD, the presidential campaign officially opened on Monday, September 2nd in Tunisia. On 25 July, the death of President Essebsi, a few months before the end of his mandate, distributed the electoral calendar. Initially scheduled for November 17, the presidential election will finally take place on September 15. 7 million Tunisians were then called to the polls after a vigorous vote registration process that reached many young people who had been very abstinent during the mid-2018 municipal elections. Boris Johnson does not want an early election and is hanging there as long as he can on the October 31st Brexit date. The head of government is highly contested for having decided to suspend Parliament next week on 14 October, which is widely seen as a way to silence deputies and prevent them from seeking to delay the Brexit, a Brexit that promises to be tough without agreement with the European Union, as Brussels has ruled out any renegotiation of the text signed by Theresa May. However, Boris Johnson repeated again and again he still believes in the chances of a new agreement with the European negotiators, even if they have repeatedly rejected these impetus. That is why we must remain united, he concluded in this very brief speech. That's all for this evening edition. Thank you for your attention. Have a wonderful evening.